If you feel like you've spent years dimming your light or holding back from what you know you're truly capable of, you've probably heard that it's because you're in fear. You fear your power, you fear your capability, you fear being seen, fear of what others think. But what if it's not quite that? And in fact, you're circling around it, but not quite landing on the real issue at play. So this is something that I see in so many of my really successful clients, is that they're attributing their holding back, they're kind of oscillating between action and complete non-action time and time again. They go really well for quite a while, and then they just burn out and then stop, and they are, pause themselves for such a long time, and they continue to go back and forth, which really is quite exhausting and doesn't help them maintain the momentum required. What's actually at the core that I find is that their nervous systems, our nervous systems, have learned that it's safer to contain our light, to contain our radiance, than it is to shine and to be in our full sense of aliveness out in the world. And we usually learn this really, really early in our childhood. In today's video, I want to help you with some very specific tips on how to make it feel safer in your body to radiate your light, to really be in your aliveness, and how much that actually ends up fueling your service, fueling your legacy work in the world. And you can far more effortlessly be who you are and let that guide you in your work, in your service, in your relating, in basically everything. So this could be the sticking point that undoes so much for you if you just give me your next few minutes, and I will take you through what's actually going on in this dynamic. So why did we learn to contain our aliveness? Chances are that when we were children, we have this natural aliveness, and all it takes is for you to go down to a playground or watch the children in your own life, your own children or children that are close to you, and you watch them just be the essence of who they are. They are so alive, they are so creative, they are so naturally in flow and connected. And what ends up happening around us if we don't have the right support system to encourage us in our aliveness, we get taught inadvertently, whether it's through certain aspects of discipline or certain aspects of how our parental figures or authority figures have held us in their own space. We often get taught to clamp down on it. And so maybe it's because we're too loud, or we're too gregarious, or we're making, we're too playful, and we're too much, right? We end up getting all of these signals into our system at a time when we're highly susceptible to conditioning, which is between the ages of 0 and 7, essentially. We're largely in a subconscious state, and so our programming and patterns get put into us at this time. And so if a particular program, like you are not safe to be fully alive in your space, in your life, then you will dim your light, you will contain your light, and your nervous system will not feel safe to radiate. So really what this essential pattern is self-preservation. It was a very smart thing that your system did to clamp down and contain, because at the time it didn't feel safe. It didn't feel fully safe to be in your aliveness. And that needs to change. So now when you want to move into more of your radiance, more of your light, more of your natural expression in the world, oftentimes the advice that you'll get, particularly from very well-meaning men and well-meaning male coaches, and the sort of the bros out there, which I'm not knocking it, because it is can be some very powerful techniques are suggested by them. But for particularly sensitive women, the kind of go, go, go approach of just that linear muscle activate into action mode can lead to the override tendency. And I've spoken about that on my channel before. The override tendency that empaths and sensitive people can, really learn, which is like the sensitivity that you feel gets ridden over and you push yourself into something that you actually don't feel quite ready to do. And the cost of moving straight into that action without creating the safety first is that you often go into burnout and you go to that oscillating like between, oh my God, lots of action and then nothing. And there's like never a kind of midway point of just gentle momentum in your system. So activation without true integration in the body, making the body feel really safe with everything that you're choosing to do, is just asking for that overriding to happen. And we don't want that. You need to restore your self-trust. And this is work that I do with so many of my women. Restoring self-trust is one of the keys to actually allowing women to move from their comfort zones into more of the growth zone. And actually what we do is we expand the comfort zone into the growth zone. So we're not pushing into a space where it feels unsafe, but that we're expanding the zone of comfort and going into growth. And so the restoration of your true power happens this way, and radiance within you naturally begins to flow. It naturally begins to show itself in the world once that self-trust is restored. The really important thing to remember here is that true activation happens when your body, not just your mind, but when your full body trusts the expansion that you're guiding it into. And when you can do that, you do very naturally create a safe space for that natural momentum, that natural aligned right step that feels good to you is going to rise up, and it isn't necessarily something that you need to muscle your way into or force your way into or override a sensation to get to. You actually feel excited, you feel compelled, you feel like, oh yes, this is a cool next step for me. And that's really where we want to arrive. And yeah, your self-trust is key and critical in this particular moment. Where we want to get to when it comes to your natural light shining in the world, the natural aliveness shining in the world, is something I'd like to call safe radiance. Safe radiance is grounded. It is connected to the body. It is anchored in the body. And when you're safe to hold your light, and you're safe to be alive, safe to naturally express, your light naturally expands and doesn't need to be pushed. It doesn't need to be forced, and it doesn't require the override tendency within your system. This looks like allowing yourself to be visible without betraying yourself and making yourself do something that you really, really don't feel comfortable doing. And it feels like giving natural expression in the world without activating huge amounts of adrenaline, and that like coursing through your system where you activate the nervous system fight-flight response. You just naturally feel like this next step is something that feels like fun. It feels like play to you. And in this state, you end up in your safe radiance. You end up allowing for yourself to be magnetic without the effort. So, all in all, I really want you to sense within yourself. If you notice yourself doing this pattern of like wanting to do it and being out in the world and then closing down and dimming yourself and being in complete inaction, just whether or not this might be a pattern that's at play. whether or not there is a sense of non-safety in your system. And if that's the case, really look at taking those steps to restore that sense of self-trust, restoring that sense of safety within your nervous system so that you can naturally have the expression and the aliveness that wants to move through you, through your body, through your natural self, rather than putting on a persona, putting on some kind of act. You in your safe radiance is going to create the coherence needed for all of the flow in your life to happen. And you will restore so much more of your natural, so much more of your natural self and your natural beingness by taking some of these steps before you go out into the world and do your thing, whatever that is. So restore safety in your nervous system first, and then allow yourself to go out into the world and shine that light of yours without dimming it, without clamping down on the natural expression and flow that wants to move through you. All right, thank you so much for joining me today. Sending you so much love. Mwah. Bye.